technology should not manage humans. Humans should manage the technology it's created. If we're not careful, we'll become so disassociated from nature and from each other, we won't be able to understand exactly who we are as a species. We'll only understand what we need to make us happy. In a very short period of time. Hey, hi.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Okay, I should start, I guess. I just want to take this one as a random. Yeah. How do you define a living building in this context of modern architecture? Is it about functionality, sustainability, or the emotional connection it fosters with its user or surroundings?
So the landscape, the site, the context, the people, the social conditions are always changing, and the building can somehow live with that.
I think all of those qualities or factors in your question should be in equilibrium as much as possible, so one doesn't dominate the others too much. So that becomes a very holistic experience for people.
So they all work in a harmony?
They all work in harmony.
Well, that was a fun question. Thank you. Anyone else? Grab a card.
Hi. Let me get this one. As an architect, how do you determine when a design is truly complete or finished? How would you describe the specific moment in your creative process when you feel a project has fully reached its potential?
I don't know if they are ever finished because once we deliver the project to the owner, to the client, it's maybe our work is completed in a way, but the building starts its life and it continues to evolve throughout its life, so it never really is finished. And so they should, I think, in my opinion, remain living and evolving through time.
So even then, if a building is taken apart, it's not necessarily finished. Parts of the building can be reused if you're intelligent about how you make it, and it will appear in some other structure. So there's, and also, even if that doesn't happen, the memory of a building can be important to people. Some people maybe had their first kiss in a building or something, and they'll remember that, even if the building's no longer there.
But have you ever felt like you overdone something on a project, or like it could have much more potential, but we couldn't keep on like?
Yeah, of course, and especially maybe years after it's completed, you know, because your thinking changes, moves on, and you see things with fresh eyes, with some distance. There are always things that we think we could have done differently, but and you always learn that way.
It's important to manage these challenges. They sometimes teach in school that you either avoid these problems or you protect yourself. They don't often tell you how to deal with everything in between, which is learning to manage problems. Great. That was a fun question.
Looking back at your career, was there a particular project or moment that fundamentally changed how you approach architecture?
Well, I think for me, I wanted to be an architect because I wanted to draw and make things. But it was a process of many years, you know, before realizing that what we do impacts the way people behave and relate to one another, and that ultimately is the most important part of the work that we do. So for me, it was very gradual.
When I grew up, I was very fortunate. I lived in central Germany. I didn't know what architecture was. I mean, when you're younger, you don't sense it as a distinct thing. It's buildings that you like or places you visited, and those have an impact on you. And it's not until later that you can sort of piece together everything and see that, oh, actually somebody had to make that. Because most architecture, just the good ones, feel like it's always been there.
How do you see emerging technologies like AI, generative design, and machine learning shaping the future of architecture? Could they evolve from support tools to potentially replacing the role of an architect, designing and optimizing the spaces?
Well, I don't think the human architect will be replaced anytime soon. At least I hope not.
She's an optimist.
Well, I mean, tools are tools. They're not replacements. So I think we need to learn how to use new technologies and new tools to help evolve.
I mean, the question implies that it's only the technology that we're dealing with now that is going to have an influence on the future of architecture, as if all historical technologies didn't. But I think the question might be interesting to reverse it historically. Did technical drafting pens change architecture? Did even pencils change architecture? Or more importantly, how did architecture change when you had to go to school? As humans, we are imperfect. And that's one of the beauties of being human, that we know that even at this table, somebody will make a mistake or say something they regret or lead to a different line of thinking that they didn't expect, because our imperfections build evolution. So as long as we understand that helps us deal with new tools in a good way. And finally, I want to say one thing. Artificial intelligence currently is seen by many people as an answer, that it provides answers. However, I would suggest that it can't give you an answer unless you ask it the right question. So if you're not able to at least critically understand a good question, how can we expect the answer to be something necessarily useful? So I think it's a dialogue, not a independent tool.
Just a quick question. Do you still use pens effectively on your studios or your offices? Like, do you still work on paper?
Like this?
Yes. Exactly like that.
I do.
Not everyone. There are some people in the studio who don't, but
I usually have a pen.
A lot of us do.
We move back and forth between what they would say analog, that means physical, and digital. And sometimes we'll make a digital component and then treat it with analog. So we'll manipulate by hand a digital print and then take it back into digital format again. So it's a constant movement.
I think one thing they often miss, especially in a 3D software like a Rhino program or something, you lose all sense of size and scale that you can get more readily when you're drawing by hand, because you also think with your hands. So it's not really giving a context of scale and size.
Another thing about sketching is that it's very difficult to be precise. And a computer almost demands some degree of precision before you've even had the chance to let yourself release thoughts in different directions.
I just saw that the sketches that you do on the project Alexandria Live on your website. I think you can't do the imagination on any other program or any other computer. You have to feel it and you have to just think about it.
Yeah.
Sure, because you might not be near a computer when you have ideas that you want to express.
You may be in the bathroom, in a VitrA bathroom that's got you thinking.
Yeah.
But you know, we should take a step back, because we're talking about drawing as though it's the core or any kind of representation. The real core of design is what we're doing right now, which is talking with one another. And talking, use of language, building of stories, connecting to people this way, it can be as, if not more powerful than making a sketch. And the challenge with a sketch is, even if you're using a pen, that it's your pen and it's your paper. And so I'm going to draw something and you're all going to see me drawing it, and suddenly I'm in control. So it creates a power dynamic that is somewhat problematic. That's the negative side of drawing, whereas when you're talking, everyone has an equal ability to discuss. And the challenge we have in our studio is that over the years, students especially have been taught not to speak up, that never question their teacher, never, say anything that might go off in a different direction. It's not academic. So we have to get people to talk. It's actually a challenge.
You also mentioned about the importance of the 3D models and also the mock-ups in the design phase and also the construction phase. What do you think about this importance of the models?
They are, very much so. And especially clients, when they see a physical model, they have an immediate understanding of what the ideas are. If they see an image, a 3D rendering, a rendering of a 3D model, they think they understand it, but they may not. But everyone can immediately get an understanding of a physical product. And it's no accident that VitrA has so many
physical
installations here, so many showrooms, because that's the best way to communicate.
So maybe we can ask a question. It's not written down. I just popped one into my head. What do you think is the reason why we have architecture? Why does it exist? What do you think that its purpose is?
Question to us.
Any of you can.
You can design buildings. You can create spaces that you need. You don't have to study architecture, actually. Giving that a little, like a touch of something that uses space more valuable, like giving a meaning to a space, that's the only thing the architect can do, in my opinion, though.
Other thoughts?
I would say it's more about shaping the life, not a simple building or an urban point. It's just everything about life has architecture in it. Like you go through your day and you go through places, spaces, and when they're defined in a way, your life is also defined the way that design is. So your daily life is basically going around an architecture, and if architecture wants you to feel some way and your environment makes you feel that way, you can just do that. So it's about shaping lives, I think, in that sense.
What innovative strategies or technologies do you consider essential for architects to address the climate crisis in rapidly urbanizing cities like Istanbul, while balancing urban density, sustainability, and cultural preservation?
When you build a building, whatever it is, someplace very far away from the city where you're building, something is changing in order to make that building occur. So either a tree is being cut down, or a hole is being dug out of the ground and there's being clay made, or any other type of natural material is being created. It has to come from somewhere else, mostly when you're working in cities. So you have to put both of those worlds in balance. Biodiversity and habitat in the world that you can't see because you probably live in a city, and the urban condition where most of us live. All of those things you have to think about, I think, at least be aware of.
Could you share examples of challenges and innovative solutions you have been encountered in creating sustainable buildings? And beyond energy efficiency and materials, how do you integrate sustainability across a building's entire life cycle, and from its inception to its long-term adoption and evolution over the decades?
Basic decisions, I think, are incredibly important, and by those I mean the orientation, just the age-old strategies of orientation and shading and a proper wall to deal with the thermal envelope for heat loss and heat gain, and incredibly important in addition to all of the other what you might call additive measures like photovoltaics or all of those kinds of things.
There's no silver solution. You have to keep trying. It's not an easy profession that we've chosen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Then, so.
Oh, another question. What is your favorite color?
Istanbul is a palimpsest city with the topography and Byzantine, Ottoman, and modern influences. How would you approach the city's landscape? What will inspire you the most?
Well, that's a fun question because Istanbul is a great city. It's one of the great cities of the world, and it's in the world's imagination. Everyone has a dream of what Istanbul might be. And of course, those dreams are sometimes accurate and sometimes not, but they're part of the heritage of this place that was built by everyone.
I think you're fortunate to have so many layers of history, and so much of it is in the ground. You know, you have an archaeological history, a cultural history, biological history. But it's just incredible that you could turn over a stone and find all kinds of treasures. That's daunting.
We have a lot of things to use as context.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we often say or think when you're in a city like Istanbul or Rome, you have to be careful not to become a prisoner of history. We know the value and the importance of history, but it should be used as a method to understand the future. As palimpsest as the city is, you have to have a palimpsest manner of thinking, which is a great advantage.
Istanbul is a place that is full, it's rich with intimacy, and that it just feels, you know, it hugs you. It's in a very nice way.
Get rid of some of those cars.
It means you have a lot of traffic.
Yeah.